I was in this airplane and my bag was hitting the ceiling, right? This is serious turbulence. It was so bad.
Serious.
And I was petrified. I'm just bloody fighting this bloody turbulence. I can't take this anymore. I was looking around for a place to land.
Welcome to another world. Today's guest, distant great uncle, founded Qantas Airlines. In this episode, we share some incredible stories of aviator Paul Deegan. Starting out for his licence at age 30 with no flying experience, Paul quickly became a standout pilot. From skydiving flights to training new pilots at Whitworth Aviation. He excelled at every stage. His career also included aerial surveys for government agencies, charter flights, and life-saving missions with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. How does flying through a thunderstorm test a pilot's limits? We'll hear about a harrowing flight over the Blue Mountains that you won't forget. What it's really like to fly life-saving missions for the Royal Flying Doctors. All this and more. So fasten your seatbelts. We're going for a ride. So, Paul, you're living a perfectly normal life in your 20s, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd say so.
And then you get to 30, and you want to be a pilot.
Well, no. Well, this is the thing. It's very interesting, right? Yes, probably as a kid that sounds like a great idea, but I had no one in my family that introduced me to it. There's no one yet. Yes, okay, my great uncle was Fergus McMaster, but he's a distant relative that. It's just a coincidence. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Didn't feel that wasn't influencing the family or anything.
No one. Look, every kid wants to fly.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid and you play flight simulator, it's like, oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did it? What happened?
Well, so I did get into this normal life. Like I did a trade. Became an electrician, right?
Yeah.
Really enjoyed.
So you're regional in New South Wales, right?
I am now.
Yeah. Were you there 20s?
Was I there in my 20s?
Yeah.
No.
So that move's got to do with your aviation career, right?
It has.
Yeah. So when did the seed come in for you?
When I was 29 and I was overworked and a year prior to that I decided to develop the family home. I borrowed money. I took on lots of risk. When I was a 28, 29-year-old, I was so motivated. If someone was to say to me, "You can't do something," I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah.
But I was so overworked, and I was at a point where we were finishing up this development, and the GFC had come and gone, and things weren't looking good for the sale of this home. Like we sold it no problem, but it wasn't that exciting. What we got for this place.
This is in Sydney.
This is in Sydney. This is 2009.
Yeah.
So I was a 29-year-old then.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm juggling this electrical contracting career. And I remember this day, this is when this happened. I was working on a job. It was a Sunday. I'm on a building site, which is probably now a $10 million mansion. But this was 2009, and I'm working on this, and I was so frustrated. I was calling my wife, Davina, on the phone, and just complaining, and I was just so sick of this, so sick of working so hard, and
Yep. You needed a tree change, literally.
Well, I said we're going to sell this house, so things were going to change anyway, and I'm like, I'm not going to go back to doing all of this electrical contracting next year. She's like, what are you going to do? And whilst I was talking on the phone, I'm outside. I've just put the tools down, having a break and having a whinge.
What are you going to do? Yeah.
And as I was saying this, and as she said, what are you going to do? I'm looking in the sky and this Qantas plane was flying past. And that was the moment.
Really?
That was it.
Really?
No bullshit. That was it. So,
wow.
And I said, I want to fly aeroplanes.
That's interesting.
And she said, what do you mean? What, Qantas aeroplanes? And I said, yeah.
Wow.
That was it.
Oh, so you wanted to be an airline pilot?
This is the natural thing for someone that's ignorant to want to do.
Right. That's your natural thought.
I had no idea about flying.
No.
Nothing.
So what do you do? What do you do?
I was motivated, you see. I had all this motivation because I'd achieved some things that I was proud of.
Yeah.
And I was 29, so I was young, and I had all this energy. And I'd made that decision. And so with that attitude, I'm going to go and do it. And I'd made the decision.
So what's your first step? What do you do?
Well, she said, get back to work. So I went back to work, and I said, well, can you just help me out and find out about it? And so I went back to work, and this was in the afternoon on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And she called me back, and she said, oh, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
So she'd got on the internet and found out, these are the hours you need. You need to do this course. You need to have this and that.
Yeah. And so what was first step?
Well, So I basically, what happened was we'd found this website so you can go learn how to fly, and I'd found this course at a flying school in Bankstown.
Yeah.
And it was like $85,000 or something like that. And I said,
Wow.
sweet, that's what I'm doing next year.
Really?
And then,
And how long was that course?
okay, so that's like a year. So this was the next. This was the
85,000.
next year. This was
Mortgage the house,
This
mate.
was 2010 start in January.
Yeah.
And this was September, October, something like that. I decided this. So I'm like, right, I know what I'm doing next year now. And
You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the house has got sold.
So you children at this stage, or?
Yeah, I had young children. Yeah.
You had
so
young
two,
chil-
yeah. So they
So
were,
what's that like to make a decision like
well,
that?
so I got married early, and
Yes.
we got into we bought into a bit of real estate early, and we had kids. early
Okay.
on.
So you were kind of in a position you could do something like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I was proposing doing, I suppose, a lot of people would look at and go, oh, that's pretty radical. And in some ways it is. But if I have everything I've done. I have my wife to thank. Like seriously,
Yeah.
So
That's great.
basically, I'll go into how I got into this course on the first day.
Yeah.
I had so much work to do because I had all these things I had to meet and tie up loose ends before I was at this course. And my wife organised all of this stuff. Go see this doctor. Go see this ophthalmologist. Fill out this form.
do all
Get
these
this signed by a
tests.
JP, and you get it. So I ended up on the first day in this classroom. I was 30 years old, wearing a uniform, and there's all these other kids
Wearing
in
a
there.
uniform at that stage?
Well, it was like an aviation college, you see.
Aviation college.
So they're training kids that have just come out of school to.
Okay.
But
But you're a bit older.
So I was like
Rodney Dangerfield, back to school.
second chance of like I'd already had a career. There's another go at it, but I was 30. But it's
Wow.
30's not that old.
But invigorating. It's not that
It was
old.
great.
Yeah,
It
but
was
it
great.
feels a bit old though at that time.
Oh, it was okay. I was pretty fit back then, and it was
Yeah.
good. And
So you get into the course and you're loving it?
I had no idea about flying. Right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story.
This
right?
is
No,
30 and you've never... That's
No,
so you would have
okay,
been
okay.
so you would have been the exception to the rule there, yeah? You would have been the odd one out, right? In the
maybe.
class.
A lot of them were foreigners. They were all great people. We had a lot of fun, and there was all this rivalry, and because we flew
So
every
there was
day.
an assortment of ages, yeah?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
weren't a
No,
fish out of water.
there was someone there I became good friends with. He was 29. He was from France.
Yeah.
And we had a lot to do with each other later on. But most of the instructors were younger than. Almost every single instructor in this flying school was younger than us.
Right.
So had to learn about this industry. So I had no idea about this industry. And this $85,000, I remember there was this item in their pilot support pack. What's this pilot support pack? It's like $6,000 or something. And I thought, I'm looking at it and I'm like, it says all these things in there, like, maps and like airfield directory and all of these like landing fees and things like that. And it said as one thing in there, flight computer. And I thought, that's got to be a couple of grand, It's a computer. Anyway, on the first day in the in this course, sitting at the table, they're handing out this pilot support pack, right? And I'm pulling out, what's all this? And there's this round bit of plastic, looked like a slide rule, had all these numbers and graduations on it.
Yeah.
I said, what's this? That's your flight computer.
Right.
I had no idea.
No idea.
So
that's your flight computer. Is it like a black box
Just a
type?
bit- it was like
is it like a black box type thing?
no, it's a $10 bit of plastic, which was a slide rule.
A slide.
A slide rule.
Wow.
Like so aviation watches have them on their dial sort of thing.
Right.
But it's just like, that's how naive I was,
That's how naive you
But
were.
I just think that's a classic, When they told me that's my flight computer, that's my flight computer.
Wow. Flight
So,
computer.
but look, I learned pretty quick. It was like, so I'd made this decision to do this, and I knew nothing about it, but that's no problem.
So that's 5 days a week sort of scenario?
Yeah.
For 12 months, yeah?
Pretty much, yeah. And they wanted the students to fly each day, maybe one flight a day, and you go into all these classes and theory and
You're flying straight away, are you?
they wanted you in the airplane on the first day.
Yeah,
almost.
really?
Yeah.
Did anyone drop out? Well, they just couldn't do
Oh
it?
yeah.
Why did they drop out? What?
Well, so it's a kind of a skill that some people are naturally good at, gifted at, and others they take a lot longer. And
It's a natural gifted thing, is it?
yeah, I mean, so to get these qualifications, it's a practical skill. So you need training, and humans are vastly different. They need some might, like say for instance, the first solo, when you first go to a flying school, you look at, what we're going to do, all this stuff. Wow, that sounds exciting. And then there's this a proposed schedule of what you're supposed to meet in terms of competency. And the first solo is like a big thing where you do some flying with the instructor and they step out, you land and they step out of the airplane and then they say, you go and do one yourself.
Wow.
And so,
how many weeks in is that?
Well, it depends on the candidate, you see.
Depends on the candidate, yeah.
Yeah.
So how quickly did you do your solo?
Well, it was 12 hours. So I might have...
So you got 12 hours with a P-plate scenario, like someone's with you, yeah? Is that what you mean?
12 hours with an instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they let you go and do one circuit. So circuits take off, come around and land, and they hope you don't mess it up. And then it's sort of
And this is at Bankstown?
Yeah.
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 So you're flying over suburban houses too?
Yeah. It's great.
If one of those came down, it's not going to do much to really, is it?
Oh, well, they're little planes.
Yes.
We don't want to see them coming down, but they do from time to time. But,
Yeah.
I mean, so flying's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, sure.
But, yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Dangerous.
It's a hell of a lot of fun.
It's not that dangerous, though, is it, really, in a way? Statistically.
It just depends on statistics, I suppose, yeah.
But, like, if driving a car to Dubbo's more dangerous than flying, isn't it, statistically?
Probably not, but maybe a
not.
Motorbike, maybe. Motorbikes are
okay.
Dangerous, so.
Right.
Yeah, look, I get when you're up in the air in a little aeroplane, the only thing you have to worry about really is hitting the ground. If you're doing something silly or some malfunction, there's no aeroplane.
So once you've got elevation, you've got elevation, you've got options, yeah? Is that what you mean?
Well, that is true if you have an engine failure. You've got options with elevation, right? Because you've got more time before you decide what you're going to do. But you've got like when we were on the highway with the car, we're driving in formation. Right? We're driving 100 kilometres an hour and the other car is only like 15 metres away.
Yes.
But it's just everyone does the right thing, there's no problem. But so it's just a different form of hazard, I suppose.
So you love flight school. What else is anything else from flight school there? Like that's what you call it, or flight academy, yeah? Well, look, it's like police academy, is it?
Yeah. Well, so I got it about 3 months in. I decided, this is not going very well. Well,
really?
Well, I had to.
What happened there?
Well, I had to face the fact that I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I've just sort of turned my back on my responsibilities in terms of making money and it's like, well, I really like this flying, but I had. Did
you feel a bit guilty, sort of chasing a dream or something? Did
you? Yeah, of course there was that.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do I decided to keep going. I got this private pilot's license, right?
Okay.
Which is a stage that you go through anyway. So it's like a basic...
What while you're at the academy, you mean?
Yeah. So 3 months about that, private pilot's license, and I said, look, I've got to go back to work and...
Oh, really?
Give me my money back and all this sort of... Well, there's so many different ways of doing this.
Right.
And so this is the thing. I learnt a lot about the industry in this period, 3 months.
You learn a lot about the industry in that 3 months.
Yeah, so my preconceived ideas...
So going back, would you go straight into it the way you did, or would you have just sort of pulled back and learned a bit more?
In some ways I would, because it was actually pretty cool being in the classroom with it. No, look...
being in the classroom with what?
With all the other... I just thought it was...
Being naive was kind of good, you mean? Is that what you mean?
My experiences were really good.
Yeah.
But
you know what I mean? If you did a little bit more homework.
Yeah. So if I was mentoring someone that was in a similar position to me now, if I was mentoring them today, I would say, don't go there. Go and do it like this and do it like that and see this person and
don't do it. Yeah. A couple of things. Yeah.
But look.
But you do look at it as a positive thing, though.
Absolutely. See, I chose a career change. So I wanted to do this for a job.
Yeah.
So that was the streamlined way of doing it. But I learnt. So I obviously ended up doing flying for a job.
So Paul, 3 months in, you've got your private license and you take a turn there. So you become a full-time pilot. Is that right?
No, I juggled. I hadn't. So to have the career. So my career was 9.5 years, but that included my flight training. So and so I decided, instead of this streamlined course, which was a year, the full commercial thing, well, I'm going to go my own way and do it myself through other providers, but I need to juggle my career.
You can get your license through different ways.
And this is a much more sensible way of doing it. Especially if you're a dad and a husband, you can you can go and get all qualified for commercial flying and still have a career and still. So that's what I needed to do.
Okay. So have a job still coming. Is that what you mean?
That's right. Yeah. So the end result was it might have taken me a little bit longer to get commercial pilot license and all the other things. You need an instrument rating and instructor rating, all this sort of stuff.
All this other
You've
stuff.
just got to. Although it's really frustrating as a young person who's really just decided I'm going to do this. I want to get paid all this money to fly these jumbos around.
Yes.
You just got to tick it off one at a time, and when you look.
Don't be in such a rush.
No, that's right. And like it's just so much of a rush to get to somewhere, and look, I look back now and go, now or when I was at the end of my career and I'm sort of taking stock and I look back, it wasn't slow at all. It felt like it at the time, and I think this is really common for.
It wasn't slow at all.
No,
even at 30.
Yeah, and that was the thing. When you're 30, you think, "Oh, I'm too old for this." That's what you're being told. I know someone who was 40 that did the same thing, and he's had an amazing career. He's still going.
So there's more time than people think. That's what.
And look, so I had much.
So if there's someone out there, 35, 40, would you still do it?
Yeah.
Where do you think you'd sort of start to lose the return? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think when you're in your 40s, it depends what you really want.
You want to sort of, okay.
Yeah, and it depends how well you've looked after yourself, I suppose.
And maybe what level you want to get to, maybe.
Yeah, we'll put it this way, right? I think I've had the best career. I think I've probably had one of the best careers in Australia. That's what I think. Now, others might, I haven't flown large airliners.
Yes. So just on that, with jets versus propellers, so you're a propeller license.
Well, yeah. All the
is there a difference? Or?
Well, there is. I mean,
So, there is a difference, but if you've got a prop license, does that mean you can do jets? Or what's the jump like? What's the jump like?
So, once you have the main basis license, which is your commercial pilot's license, and you have these approvals on top, which are instrument rating and these things.
Approvals.
So the next thing is these what they call type ratings. So once you get into these bigger complex machines, you have to be qualified on the particular machine. So it doesn't really matter whether it's got a jet engine.
On the particular.
Yeah, and look, some of the airplanes I flew did have jet engines, but they had propellers out the front. But once you get into these big machines,
they have a jet. So how does that work? They have jet engines and propellers as well. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So if you think about what the public fly in, say like the Regional Express airplanes or Qantas Link have these Dash 8 400s.
Yes.
They have propellers on the front.
Right.
But the engines are gas turbine. They sound like a jet engine when they start.
Oh, right.
Not like your car, like a reciprocating engine. So
they sound like a jet engine.
So
because they are a jet engine.
They are a jet engine.
They're a jet engine, but with a propeller.
Yeah. That's right. And
so they're powerful. That must be really powerful.
Yeah, gas guzzlers. Oh, loads of power. Yeah. So
loads of power. Are they safer? Because apparently they're just really safe, aren't they?
They're a lot safer. They're more expensive, but they're a lot safer. And one of the reasons why
they're more expensive in terms of maintenance, or
probably not. Well, in terms of the long-term maintenance, like every so many thousand hours, they've got to do a big overhaul. That's probably very expensive. But the routine maintenance is probably very cheap.
So the actual plane's more expensive? Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm talking about the engine.
Yeah, what you said was more expensive. They're more expensive.
Oh, look, airplanes are expensive.
Yes.
And when you start to get to that level of complexity, you're talking millions of dollars.
That level of complexity.
Yeah.
So Paul, you buy a plane. A Cessna.
I did.
Yeah.
What's that?
Four-seater.
Four-seater Cessna 172.
And was that how achievable is that?
Very achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
did you get that second hand? Or?
Yeah. Second hand. So
tell me how that came about.
So I learnt on these things. So Cessna 172 is the most widely produced airplane ever, and so the first airplane.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's like a Volkswagen or something in the sky.
Yeah. More than all of those models from the World War II. The Cessna 172. I think there's 46,000. Yeah. It's the most common. So it is. It's
common, yeah. So it's a great plane, really, and then is it?
Can't go wrong. Yeah, it's a beautiful plane. Yeah. So this is what I learnt on. You see.
Yep.
So as soon as I get to this flight school, I'm like checking out these airplanes. I've never seen them before, never been in them before, and they're really old, right? This is. It's like going back in time. They're all from the 1970s.
Which one's the one you're learning on?
All of them. This flight school had 40 airplanes. And you get in this little Cessna and there's a little ashtray there, you know, and it's like it's all old plastic and it smelled funny and smelled like fuel and
Wow.
yeah. So there was some point in my 9.5-year career, like, you know, there's all these attempts to get these jobs with airlines, and there was some point where I said to Davina, I said, oh, I've had enough of this bloody airline stuff, you know, trying to...
So what do you mean airline stuff? Because you didn't get to pilot airlining, you mean? But you're on that journey.
So I'm applying for things.
Oh, were you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So when you decide to, you know...
So hang on. So you do the 3 months and then... so then you get your licence a different way, a different route?
Yes. Yep.
And then you start looking for what?
I start doing jobs, yeah. My first job was a jump pilot. So that's a skydiving pilot. I did that for 4 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of these jobs I did multiple. I probably had 3 jobs at one go at some point in time.
3 jobs at one go as a pilot, or
like weekends doing the skydiving, jump flying.
Okay.
That was a great job. You know, I was up at the Central Coast on the weekends and up in the air, beautiful scenic flying and lots of excitement, and then a day of flying and then go back to the other job. And
so what's a day of flying doing, Nat? When you say a day of flying, how many flights would you do?
It might have been, like typical Saturday might do 6 to 8 flights up to 14,000 feet.
Wow.
With a couple of parachutists.
Good way to get some hours and experience up.
Yeah. Didn't get paid.
Didn't get... Oh, you were getting your hours up.
That's common. Yeah.
That's common.
Yeah. So when you get a commercial pilot's license, you're unemployable. And even if you got
You're unemployable. Why?
Because you need... It's sort of like... I don't know how to describe it. Like it's a commercial pilot license, but you're just no good at anything and you're not qualified at anything. So
Because you haven't got experience. You need experience to get a job, but you haven't got it. Is that it?
You need someone to give you a go.
Yeah.
So you're looking for these jobs. And whilst you're doing this and you're getting hours and things, you're dreaming about later on and you're getting resumes together and you're applying for things and you're having airlines have you on file. And there's all of it. And so getting to this, how I bought this Cessna, I got to a point where I was sick of all of this crap because it's challenging, right? It's really difficult. Sometimes you have these moments.
Right.
And I said to Davina, look, all right, I'll go back and run the electrical contracting business. I'll fire that up again and I'll to hell with this.
Why is that? Because it was just getting too much.
This industry, it has these cycles as well, right? So COVID is an obvious one, but there's been these cycles where the airlines just, they start employing people, they take people out of the general aviation market, you know, and they just take on all these candidates, and if you're in the right place at the right time and you've got the credentials, they'll hire you. But then there's these other times where it's all quiet, right?
Yes.
And this was around the time, like Alan Joyce had grounded Qantas, I think the first time ever. The share price was less than $1. I had gone down to
what year was it?
This would have been 2000...
Just after GFC.
2013, 2014. I had gone down to a course down in Adelaide for Qantas Link. And this happened when I was down there. And I was 3 weeks down there and I said, I'm going to go home. I've had enough of this.
So you flew a Qantas plane then? Did you?
No. So this is just an organisation that did some training for them, you know, for people like me that, you know, just another course. It would have been like a multi-crew corporation course or something like that. And I was at a point where I said, forget it. I said to Davina, I said, look, I'll go back, but can I at least buy an aeroplane?
Right.
And she said yes.
Right. Okay.
So that's how it became about. So I bought one.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So tell me that. Would you just look at it in classifieds or something online? Planes are us.
Yep. $72,000.
Wow.
It was a beautiful plane.
So do you look at mileage and that sort of stuff?
All that.
Yep. And what's a good? Why did it tick the boxes for you?
Well, it was a good example of a Cessna 172. It was a 1976 model. It had a new engine in it. That's a big thing.
Oh, new engine. Why'd you put a new engine? You need a new engine.
This is what was available. It had one in there. So
but why do you reckon they replaced it? Just
because the old one was due. So they have, you know, airplanes have these hours. Once the hours are up.
Is that right? What sort of hours was an engine due?
2,000 hours.
2,000.
Yeah. So I didn't have to. I bought this.
How long could that take to 2,000 hours?
Oh, geez. Well, put it this way: I flew it any time I could, had the chance, and I flew about 100 hours a year, and I had it for 6 years. 2,000 hours is a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of flying.
That's a lot of flying, right?
Put it this way: when I bought it, I didn't worry about having to pay for a new engine. That was 2,000 hours. That's way off into the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a car with 100,000 Ks on it? Is it a similar sort of thing?
You could probably say 200,000 kilometres. And you can
200,000.
You could mathematically figure it out. The airplane does 200 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
So it does 200 kilometres an hour in the yeah, and so the jets at 30,000 are doing about 900, aren't they?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So 200. Yeah. Okay. So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you buy your plane.
Yeah.
Where was that? Where'd you buy that?
Oh,
Did you have to fly it home or?
Yeah, so I had a lot of, it was awesome. I have a lot of family in the Gold Coast now.
Okay.
And this guy put it up for sale, and it was a really great example of an aeroplane, and negotiated with this guy on the online, and we actually met up again subsequent to me buying it years later, and I let him fly it again, and he was just chuffed. But
right,
he'd met me at the Gold Coast airport, and so I'd flown up there on a Jetstar or whatever to go and meet the family, and I had my parents come and pick me up from the Gold Coast airport. And they picked me up, and I said, I'll just come and have a look at something, because I had the security pass. I could go into where all the airplanes were.
Okay.
And I just want to show you something. And I walked up there and I said, "No, have a look at this. What do you think of this?" And I said, "I just bought it."
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it was a great little thing. So that became the family Cessna.
The family Cessna.
Yeah. And I'd retired then. That's when I retired, right? My first retirement.
Okay. What do you mean when you bought the plane, you mean, or?
Yeah, because that was my deal to my wife, you see.
That was the deal, yeah. Okay, so then how does that deal change?
We're moving a little bit around here in the timeline. But,
right.
But look, I'd had a case.
Well, let me ask you a different question, because I'll come back to that. Yeah. If you could buy any plane in the world, you had no financial restraint, what would you buy?
That's a tough one. Cessna Caravan. I've always said that's my favourite aeroplane.
Okay, and what's that about?
It's just a big Cessna. It looks like a Cessna. It's not that expensive.
It's just big. Yeah.
Well, so I used to fly these with the skydiving company. So you'd have 16 skydivers on it. It's big. It has the jet engine. It's a turboprop.
It's got the turboprop.
But you can land this on like rough terrain and things like that.
Right.
So it was a utility plane. I've flown a lot of utility planes, and so once I got into this general aviation career, right? That's non-airline.
Non-airline.
I tried to get into these airlines, but I didn't like a lot of things about. Put it this way.
What didn't you like?
Oh, you have to wear a uniform. And, and you have to.
It's quite regimented, and you're going away for certain periods and stuff.
Oh, yeah, and pretty much, and it was like this in the Flying Doctors, which you can understand this. It's a big responsibility. Every button push you do, they have complete authority over everything. So they need to train you to operate these machines throughout any kind of emergency, and your behaviour needs to be just so. All right, but the public expect that when you're in a big airliner. If you go and pay for a ticket, you want the people at the front to
be like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But my personality is more as such, and I sort of figured this out a little bit early. That
you're a fly-by-the-seat maverick
I
sort of thing.
I want to go out into the outback in a bit of a shitbox airplane that's nearly falling apart.
Right. Really?
And just
really
excitement.
Do you want to feel like you're just hanging in the air?
Oh, see, that's happened many times.
What do you mean's happened many times?
Okay, so all of these so I've got these great stories of these little airplanes nearly falling apart. But
really? What do you mean? Like doors and stuff?
Oh. Nothing too scary. Look, but this is a constant.
I remember getting in a small plane in Noumea, the family thing, and the seatbelt sign was hanging by one screw. Yeah, I was like,
that's so normal. It's like you look around, you see duct tape, and
what is that? What is that?
These are old machines.
They're old machines.
A lot of the times, it's all.
But the engines are good. Yeah, is that what you mean? Or?
Well, this is the thing. As long as it meets the requirements, all right, a little bit of duct tape here and there, that's okay.
Duct tape.
And a lot of these things are built with redundancy. Like I remember going on an aerial. I've done a lot of aerial survey. I remember going on an aerial survey trip for 2 weeks in Broken Hill, and we got there on the first day, and one of the alternators failed. So we have 2 engines on this, and each engine has an alternator. One of them failed, and we tried to get the thing repaired. But I did the whole aerial survey trip on one alternator. There's no problem. So
one alternator.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Well, it just means that.
When you say one alternator, is that one engine?
It was just the electrical supply.
Electrical.
So it was all fine. Okay. We did all the job and everything, but we had no redundancy. It wasn't, and that wasn't even a safety issue.
No redundancy for the electrics, you mean?
Except for the battery. So if we were up doing aerial survey and that one failed, we'd have to shut all of the aerial survey equipment down in the back and maybe some things in the front and then just go down and land. So, but general aviation is can be a lot of excitement with all of these challenges, right? And there's a challenge in getting a job done and legally as well. You got to get it done legally.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
you mean certified? It's got to get certified.
Well, you can't. Okay, so with flying, it's a very regulated industry, and if you're taking members of the public up if you go into the outback and you get on one of these tourist kind of things, you're going to be flying on these types of airplanes. It does have to be done safely and legally.
Yeah.
But you got to navigate that, and a young pilot navigating that as well as getting the job done, and
a turboprop. What was it? What did you call it? A caravan?
Cessna Caravan. Yeah. Looks like
it sounds like a flying caravan or something.
Oh mate, well that's the thing. I'd have the seats out in the back, and I'd have camping gear, and I'd just go off on a trip.
Wow.
If I could do that.
So pretty rough. So how rough are we talking about? You can land on how rough?
Oh look, just you need to have a prepared.
So
surface.
some of those runways are pretty rough. Is that what you're getting at? There's still a runway, but there's still...
So a runway out in the outback is like a dirt strip or gravel or something like that.
Yeah, and if there's been rain, it can be uneven.
Yeah, you might not be able to use it in rain.
Yeah.
So it just depends. So there's a lot more exciting. And little planes go to
a lot more exciting, yeah. So we need a bit of uncertainty, don't we? Is that what it is?
You need excitement, uncertainty. You need a small risk that you might not get to where you're going.
Small risk.
Well, here's the thing, and if you get to where you're going, it's like an achievement, you see. And sometimes I tell you,
get to where you're going, it's an achievement. So talk to me. No, you were talking about V1. So V1, in a normal standard plane is when you're taking off. Is that V1?
This is more airline stuff. People will see this on like those shows like Air Crash Investigation, where the captain and the co-pilot are in the cockpit and they're on the runway and they're going down the runway, and one of them calls V1.
Yeah.
And whoever's flying takes their hands off the power lever and puts their hand up there. V1 is like, once that's called, you're not going back.
There's no turning back.
So if you have an engine
V1 is no turning back.
It's no turning back. So
if you pull up, then you're hitting the end of the runway.
That's right.
You've got to take off. Yeah.
So if you hear a bang and no one's called V1, they abort. Right, and then they stop and they have enough runway to do that.
If you hear a bang before V1, you abort. Yeah.
So if someone calls V1, the hand comes off the power lever onto the control column, because if your hand's away from it, you can't abort. It's a mental thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
you're locked in.
Yeah. So I figured out what V1 really was. V1 doesn't happen on the runway. It happens on the driveway at home. When you're in the car, you get up in the morning, you got to go to work, fly this plane. You get in the car and you reverse down the driveway. When you're about halfway down the driveway, that's V1.
That's V1. Why? And why do you say that?
Because you're going to work. Yeah. You're going to get the job done.
Right. Okay. You're coming home. You're going to make it all happen.
It's just a bit of a...
Have you ever had a close call on a V1?
So we use V1 in the flying doctors. So, little planes we're not really using, especially single engine airplanes.
Little planes not so necessary.
This is more of a multi-engine thing.
Right.
So if one engine fails and you've passed V1, well, you're still going to go and do your procedures and come back safely. So I've never had any major malfunction.
No.
I've had I remember some memorable things. I had my parents and my aunt and my son in a little airplane, a little 6-seater twin engine thing, and we went on an outback trip. We used to go on all these outback trips when I could.
Yeah.
Because we have this great uncle. Well, my parents asked me, can you take us into the outback? And I said, yeah, if you're paying for it. And so I hired an airplane. We went to Longreach to the Qantas Museum. And they thought that was great, right? And then I took them to these great places I'd been to, and I took them to Birdsville. They never would have gone into the outback if we didn't have that, my ability to go and get an airplane and take them there. I don't believe anyway, but when we were taking off the next morning from Birdsville, so my parents, my aunt, my son, and I took off and I selected the gear up, so the landing gear, and then this horn was started, the warning horn was going, bing, and I looked down, I thought, the wheels aren't coming up.
Oh.
So But that's not such a problem, you see. It's much better to have the wheels not come up than the wheels not come down.
Come down, right.
But that was interesting. There's a funny story.
So what happens there?
Funny story to this. Anyway, I thought, well, I've got plenty of time here. I'll get the book out and have a look just to make sure that what I'm going to do that is the right thing, because you want the things to be down and locked down. And
down, yeah.
The wheels. So I wanted to go back and land.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
Sorry, you had the wheels locked down or locked up?
Well, they wouldn't come up. If I'm taking off from Birdsville, I'm going to, I don't know where we were going, William Creek or something. So this is the middle of nowhere.
Sure.
And if you're going to have your wheels hanging down, you're going to go a lot slower.
Yes.
And you might not
drag
have
and more fuel.
Yeah.
So is that significant? How much fuel you'll use?
The bigger the airplane, the more fast, the bigger, more complex, the more. So you can't have the wheels hanging down.
You can't.
No, you've got to get them up. So, but all these things didn't concern me at the time. My immediate concern was, well, I'm going to put this thing back on the ground. I want the wheels to stay down and not collapse on me or something like that. So I did everything that I should have done to land, and I did. And I said to my parents, they were great. My parents and mine, no problem at all. Like, they weren't scared or anything.
Yeah.
And then, so I said, will you guys go and get a coffee or something? I'm going to go to the pub, because that's all there is in Birdsville, the pub.
Yeah, right.
And I'm going to go. I'm going to call the boss, because I was working for this guy on this plane, and I wanted to ask him about it, right? And I did ring him and ask him. He goes, "Oh yeah, we had a few problems with that," and he told me a little bit of it. It's just some little dip switch on the mechanism on the landing gear. The airplane still thinks it's on the ground, so when you try to raise the wheels, it doesn't want to bring them up because it still thinks it's on the ground.
Right. So
he said, "Get under there and have a look, and tell me what you see." And I said, and then I figured out that it wasn't when the airplane's taken off, the little switch hadn't actuated. So I had to bend. I went to the pub and I got a pair of pliers and some duct tape. I always have duct tape. I had that, and I got under there and I bent the bit of metal so that when it took off, it actually did actuate the switch.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I'll go and do one circuit on my own. And then it worked, and that's great. And I got the family.
It worked,
yeah. But the funny side of this was about 3 months later, and I was working for this guy. We were at the pub in Bathurst and having a bit of a yarn, and then we were having a joke about that. You see?
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh yeah, what did you do? Did you end up fixing that?" And he goes, "No, you fixed it." So that bit of duct tape was still there, and anyway.
Wow.
I just thought
you fixed it.
That was a classic.
Yeah. Sounds.
No, it was all good. It's all good.
No, that's good. That's good. So when you are just going a little bit back to get in the air as a single person, you don't need that many hours.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's you can basically get a pilot's license before you can get a driver's license.
Wow.
And I don't know what the numbers are.
What you mean, age-wise or
age-wise?
Yeah.
You can fly an airplane solo at a younger age than you can drive a car solo.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Solo, yeah.
Solo.
That's an important factor.
Yeah. Look, once you've flown an airplane solo, say, for instance, your first solo, the aim of the game is for the candidate to do it safely and get them back on the ground. And then you get under instruction again. Like, once you've flown solo, it doesn't mean that you're good to go now. It's something you've got to get out of the way safely. It's
something you've got to get out of the way.
You know, and then get back to work with all the flying instruction, because you really don't know what you're doing. You know enough to do that one circuit, but I'll tell you, when I was doing my second solo, there was a few other students in the circuit. So the circuit is where, airplanes take off and land and they go around and do a circle.
Yeah.
And there was another candidate doing his first solo, and he completely cocked it up. He was doing the wrong thing, doing something. He was overtaking airplanes in the circuit, and air traffic control would, getting a bit frazzled, and so all kinds of things can go wrong.
Yeah.
You want the candidate, the instructor. They need to progress them, and they need to get them to a point where, all right, this person can go and do it now. Let's get it out of the way, and then once that's done, it goes in the logbook, and then back to teaching them how to fly. So. Yeah, but it's a moment that you have, and it's a milestone. So everyone remembers what aircraft they did it in and what the rego was on the aeroplane. You can look at any pilot's logbook, and you can see you could see when they did it and who.
It's a milestone, yeah. A waypoint in the career.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Tell me about waypoints. So, do you need to? That's like a part on your journey that do you need to, in a smaller plane, do you need to report in where you're going, where you're expected, and things?
Yeah. So it's very regulated, and it depends on what your category of flight is. So in the sort of commercial flying world, so a lot of my commercial flying was lots of aerial survey and charter flying, where corporates would get in a 10-seat aeroplane, and you would take them to wherever they need to go. But these are little airports, like regional airport. You might go from Bathurst to Narrabri or something like that, and then wait around all day for these.
Just on that, Paul. So say this afternoon you're at Bankstown, you've got your Cessna there.
Yep.
How difficult is it? Could you make a spur of the moment thing? I want to fly to Dubbo.
Yep.
What's involved? How complicated? Because to me,
very straightforward.
Yeah. What would happen? So say you wanted to go to Dubbo this afternoon.
Yep.
And that comes up shorter notice. Yep. What would you do?
You get in your car, go down to Bankstown, park the car.
Really?
Yep. Go through a gate. You'd have the code to the gate, and you'd walk up to your aeroplane.
So your aeroplane's sitting there?
You're sitting there on the grass or where all the tie downs are.
You walk up to your aeroplane?
You walk up to your airplane, and I used to do this all the time.
Really?
I'd commute to Dubbo for flying
Commute?
With
so you're just getting in your plane?
Yep.
And then what? And then you tune in with the airport, do you?
You would call the refueler. If you need a fuel, a fueling truck comes around to the plane, fills it up. You get your ticket. Or use a credit card, I can't remember.
So the airport's sitting there, they're sort of noticing that you're coming in, you've gone through the gate and gone to your plane. Are they looking at that, or?
This is what all the students do. When you're learning to fly at Bankstown.
Yeah. Yep. So you get in your plane, sorry.
You get in your plane, you start the thing up, and you need clearance to depart. But this particular procedures, it's very straightforward. You don't need to put a flight plan in. They only really care, the Bankstown Airport only care about the 3-mile radius.
3-mile radius.
And that's it.
Why do they only care about that?
Well, each air traffic control authority has a boundary within which they're controlling.
They're controlling.
So
that.
If you're going into some other airspace outside of that, that's another responsibility. But this type of flying, we would fly beyond that 3-mile radius and underneath the controlled airspace. Mm-hmm. So you just punch out of Bankstown.
Yep.
You need clearance to get on the runway. You need clearance to take off, and then see you later.
So you're in your plane to get clearance. How long does that take? You can sit in your plane and do your checklist. Is that right? And then you can get clearance that way, or
you need to wait till your engine warms up. That's it. So
is that it? Yeah. How do you know you've got clearance?
Oh, you get on a radio frequency and you ask.
Yeah.
A radio call might be.
That's pretty cool.
I have to think I haven't done this in a long time.
That's pretty cool. You can literally just go out there.
Yeah, you request taxi and then you go to the holding point, which is the just before you get onto the runway, and you'll say Bankstown Tower, X-ray Golf Whiskey, holding point Alpha 9, runway 29 right, request takeoff or something like that. If you do it every day, it just comes out.
So this Alpha 9 business, Bravo, Tango, all this, is that just to confirm the letter that you're saying? B for Bravo. Is that what that is?
Well, if you look at a map of Bankstown Airport, like an aviation map of the runways and everything, there's all these points on there. They have to give them names, you see.
Okay.
So, where we are now, there's streets and roads, and they have street names.
Yes.
And so aviation's a very coded kind of thing. Yeah. Because back in the old days with the war, it was all Morse code. We didn't have this sort of bandwidth of data. So everything's coded.
So Morse code. Sorry, that's an emergency sort of. Was that brought in as that was to conceal the message? Was it? Is that right?
No, it's just the means to
communicating.
Transmit. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just a communication.
Yeah. So rather than voice, Morse
code. Yeah, a different way of communicating.
And so, but aviation has its roots in military. You know what I mean?
Military, right? Okay, yeah.
And so all of this stuff, military. Like a layperson who's sort of looking at some aviation thing and they're hearing all of this Sierra Whiskey, Foxtrot Alpha, and all that kind of stuff, they've got no idea what's being said. And when you're a student, you've got no idea what the hell. One of the most daunting things when you're a student is they get you in the airplane. They want you in the airplane on the first day, which is really good that they do this.
Yep.
And then you're in the airplane in the pilot seat, and you have the instructor to your right, and you have a bit of paper tells you what to say on the radio. You're making radio calls straight away. So you're asking for, because you need to learn this.
You need to learn that.
And so when you can tell a student, because they've got no idea what they're saying, but you've got to learn somehow.
Sure.
But look, getting out of Bankstown, it's as simple as that. You start the thing up, make sure you've got enough fuel, and you don't put a flight plan in.
Make sure you've got enough fuel,
Well, that's important. You don't want to run out of fuel. Right. But look, you just go to Dubbo, so that's a 50-minute flight, and you just take off, point the aeroplane towards Dubbo.
That's a 50-minute flight.
And you'll end up there. Yeah. In a Cessna, it's actually it's probably a little bit more than that from Bankstown. Might be an hour and 20 minutes, something like that.
Paul, what's the difference between a turboprop and a normal prop? Flying it.
Oh, you've got a lot more power.
A lot more power.
Yeah, so they're a lot more forgiving, a lot more power.
A lot more forgiving. Forgiving. What do you mean forgiving? They're
forgiving until they're not forgiving.
So just on the forgiving. So if a plane's just level flight, that's how it's getting its elevation because of the difference in air pressure with the shape of the wings.
That's right.
If you tilt, you're not getting as much lift, correct?
Vertically, no.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're starting to have a horizontal component.
So you might need to compensate with more power. Is that right?
That's right. Or you have an elevator at the back of the airplane, which is the tail of the airplane, and that's used to change the attitude of the airplane. So you pull back and you're pointing up more.
Wow. So, you are pointing up more.
Yeah. So look, the airplane's got all of this controllability.
Yeah.
Look, one of them is power.
One of them's power.
So.
So that's the back ones. That's those ones that
the elevator. Yeah, the tail.
That's those
horizontal stabilizer and things like that, and the rudder. That's all at the back.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So at takeoff checklist, will you have even though you're a smaller plane, will you your checklist, is that still important to you?
So when you go to these flight schools, you're trained to do all this checklist stuff.
Yeah. Do you? Is that important?
Well. So
you've checked it in the morning, so you're not going to check in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So an airplane.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you got to do a walk around. So I've probably forgotten that. And look,
got to do a walk around, and you're just
you've got to do an inspection of your aeroplane. So sometimes, I probably come off a little bit blasé about some of these things, and I've got to admit, once I parked that Flying Doctor's aeroplane on my last day.
Yes.
And then that was it. I'd chosen to retire. That was it. And then I got into my Cessna and gone. I did develop an attitude. It's a little bit dangerous, but I've done this so many times that it doesn't matter. I just get in and go. Right. And I was doing that quite a bit.
With your own plane sort of thing? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. But I was able to manage that a little bit in that if I ever had anybody else in the airplane, I wouldn't do it. I can revert back to... I just relaxed a little bit. Yeah. But that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah. A little bit of complacency slipping.
Yeah, but the fact that I can sit here and say this, I obviously know that what I was doing.
Yes.
But it was fun to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And so when you have your own airplane and a simple, going from the King Air, from the Flying Doctors, and that was...
King Air, that sounds like a good plane.
It was a very nice plane.
Yeah.
So
that's a turboprop situation.
So it was a twin engine, turboprop, pressurised, quite
turbo.
fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what sort of elevation could you go into with that?
We would fly 25,000 feet. So we're sort of halfway up with those things.
That's high, yeah. So you'd be going faster than 200 k's an hour.
We'd be doing 250 knots. So we'd be doing 450 kilometres an hour.
Yeah,
like
so
that.
you're moving up there.
Yeah. So look, when I first got into this aeroplane, I obviously had a lot of training to do, and my first sort of few days on the job at Dubbo with a pilot, and I got in this.
Yeah, so that's a jump up from what you're normally.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. So
this
was it?
Yeah,
so it was almost like a new license for yourself, is it?
It was so I had to have this type rating. I think they call it a type rating. It depends on that King Air, but I did some training down in Melbourne in a simulator for a week, and to seal the deal on that qualification, I had to fly the plane once, and then the instructor, the guy doing that sort of training, signs my logbook, B200 or BE20, I think it is, and that's that airplane. That's a very proud moment. Like, I've got the King Air in the book now.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the training begins. I had to do 100 hours with the Flying Doctors under supervision. And when I first got in this...
That's a lot, 100 hours, I guess.
It was, yeah. And it's like an expensive training because because it's doubling up with wages and everything. But so you're doing the work, but you have a senior, qualified, experienced pilot there supervising and training you and mentoring you and everything. So, and when I first got in this on the first day, and we're going up to Lightning Ridge or whatever, this was the dental clinic. They would train me on the dental clinic. So it's not an emergency plane. It's taking medical professionals out to these remote places, and then we would hang out all day in the hotel or go to the cafe while they're doing all the dental work, and then we take them back.
Oh, okay.
So it was a good platform to train a pilot. When I first got in this,
not as much urgency, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you need to work up to that.
Yep.
When I got in this thing, and the other guy was flying an introductory thing, and I'm like, we landed at Lightning Ridge or whatever. I'm like, wow, this is the coolest job in the world. I was just like, wow, this thing was so fast and so powerful.
Wow.
Like this thing, take off and climb. Like these airline guys are probably thinking, oh, that's slow, but compared to a Cessna 172, we'd take off and climb, and we're doing 160 knots climbing. And it's just like really fast for someone who'd been. My previous job was in like an air van, a little. It would go twice as fast as that, and it would go as fast as my aeroplane with one engine. You know what I mean? So it was a big step up, and it is a very complex airplane for one pilot, and that was the job.
One pilot.
That's the job, you see. And that was the appealing thing: single pilot operations, right? So the airlines that have
you like to have control. Paul.
I'm a bit of an individual.
When you're in the cockpit, there's instruments everywhere. Can I take a guess that 80% of them you're hardly using at all? It's like there's certain ones that you're using all the time. Is that a fair comment?
Well, it's fair in that. Some things have got much more high priority than others.
Yeah.
But everything's there.
So what are your main ones you're looking at?
Well, the main ones are the ones you'd find in a real basic airplane like I had. They call it a 6-pack, right? The 6 dials.
The 6-pack.
It's 6 dials in front of a pilot, and there's the airspeed indicator, the altimeter.
Airspeed, altimeter.
The attitude indicator, sometimes called the artificial horizon. That's right in front of you. And then you've got the vertical speed indicator.
Artificial horizon, so that's mirroring the angle.
Yeah, that's really important, especially if you go into cloud and you can't see the natural horizon. You need something, otherwise. So you need something. So these are real.
So that's what you're looking at. Yeah. So when you've got no vision, they're your eyes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Because when you're in an aeroplane, you're exposed to these forces that affect. So when you stand upright, you're not falling over because you've got a fluid in your inner ear that tells your brain that you're standing upright and you're not leaning. Now, if you might have heard of where some people get a inner ear infection and they get dizzy. So it's a really important mechanism for the brain. When you're in an aeroplane and you're banked, so banked is when you're turning, like you described before. Your fluid in your brain, the fluid in your ear will tell your brain that you're upright.
Yeah.
But because your eyes can see outside and can see that the horizon's tilted, that overrules that sensation, and you know that you're not upright.
Right.
So when you're in cloud and you can't see that natural horizon, and
you don't know.
You just see white outside. And the fluid in your ear, because it's balanced forces, like on a banked track on a racetrack, like NASCAR or something like that, the forces are straight down. So you could be banked and turning, but you think you're going straight and level.
Wow.
So that's why that's a very important instrument.
Very important.
When you go in a cloud, you need to look at that because your brain needs that visual, whether you're you're banked or you're level.
So the 6-pack, what else have you got in the 6-pack?
Well, so the vertical speed, what else is there? Vertical speed indicator. So the altimeter, there is the direction indicator, which is sort of like a compass. These are old airplanes.
Yeah.
A lot of the modern ones, it's all screens, computer screens now.
The modern ones.
And there's different ways of representing that information. But
so have you ever had one of them betray you?
Betray me?
Give you the wrong information.
There's this old thing in aviation, trust your instruments.
Yeah.
That's what you're told.
Yeah.
You've got to trust your instruments.
So what is instrument flying? What is that?
Well, there's 2 types of flying. There's visual flying.
Right.
And that's
you just feel by feel, is it? Or
looking out the window. There's Dubbo over there.
Wow.
There's Banks down there.
Is that dead reckoning?
Yes, a lot of that is.
That's dead reckoning.
That's
So what is dead reckoning, Paul?
Dead reckoning is, well, I was taught this, and they're probably moving a little bit away from it now, but dead reckoning is a navigational technique. So I know where I am now.
Okay.
I know how fast this airplane goes.
Okay.
I know where I want to go, and I know the track that I need to go, and I point the airplane on that track.
Wow.
And then I wait a certain period of time, and maybe a halfway point, and then I look out the window and I see where I am, and I look on the map and I go, am I on my track?
Yeah.
And most of the time you're not.
Most of the time you're not?
Yeah, because you have wind and,
Why?
And so then you see, all right, I'm off my track by a certain amount. That gives you information to know what, then you can sort of figure out what the wind is. But then you can make a correction and then get back toward your destination. So dead reckoning, I love it. It's the best way of flying.
Is it?
All you need is your map, your pencil, and your watch. That's it.
Wow.
That's all you need.
Wow.
So I've done these outback flights where I've deliberately pulled the GPS out and thrown it in the back.
Right.
And it's kind of fun and rewarding. And it actually gets really exciting
Right.
when you're going to the destination, which is just some outback pub,
Yeah.
and it's going to be dark in 20 minutes,
Right.
and you can't find the bloody thing. It gets really exciting because once it's dark, you're in the shit.
Right.
So-
Especially outback, right? No, you've
Yeah.
got no,
Well,
there's
yeah.
no
It's like-
stream of lights,
It's
right?
like, do I get in the back and get that bloody GPS out and try and find out where the hell I am?
Right. Wow.
It's a lot of fun, but it's really
Dead
rewarding.
reckoning.
But see, this is what they did in the old days.
So that's where you're using your maths and physics, yeah? And
You train on these techniques. Yeah. So
So your engineering brain's calculating all of this sort of stuff, and then you chuck a bit of pressure on there, a bit of urgency,
Yeah.
and you got to really think. Have you ever had cognitive dissonance?
I've had some times in my flying career where the stress has been a bit too much. A couple of times.
Tell me one of those.
I remember. Okay, so one of these aerial survey jobs I did was a pretty sensitive job for the government, and they wanted to check.
Aerial survey.
Yeah. So look, aerial survey. I'll just give you
Sure.
a bit of a
Yeah,
rundown. They
they want to keep an eye on lots of things, right?
We'll put it this way. Right?
Wildlife, conditions. Yeah. You go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So aerial survey, I've done a lot of it, in different forms of it. The airplane's just a platform. So you get the airplane up in the air, and something's mounted to the airplane. That could be a camera. I did a lot of imagery for the Department of Lands, LiDAR, which is laser elevation survey.
Right.
So you'd fly up and down these defined routes, and the sensor would gather data. Everything you see on Google Maps and everything, it's all from aeroplanes. So there's just
all
so
from
much.
aeroplanes.
Yeah, there's so much aerial survey. And I did parks and wildlife, low-level bird counting. Like I didn't do the counting.
Low-level bird counting.
Yeah, that was fun.
Talk to me about that. Yeah. The migrating. What is it? The geese. Did you ever see that?
Oh, look. So I'm just the pilot.
Yeah.
And the passengers that are doing the survey.
They're doing the work.
Yeah. So the low-level one. So they had a predefined route, and they've done this survey. Well, by now they've probably been doing it 45 years. It's one of the longest-running surveys.
Right.
The job was, it was a small plane, a Cessna 206, just a six-seater, right?
Yeah.
And a university professor in the front looking out that window, and another university professor in the back looking out the other window.
Right.
We're flying this predefined route, very low, just above the treetops, and they would look out the window and look in these waterways, all these different waterways, rivers and dams and things, and then try and count how many birds are down there. Now, obviously, they're estimating, and then they're able to sort of figure out what species there are, and they're calling this information into a dictaphone.
Right.
They'd fly along and they might say, I can't hear what they're saying. But when we land, they would, I'd be refueling and everything, and they would put the earpiece in and listen to their audio and transpose that to a bit of paper. And that's the survey.
Yeah, right.
But it was a fun flying. So flying really low to the ground. It's very exciting.
Right.
Yeah,
How low are we talking about that?
Well, very low. Like,
are you undulating with the hills and things?
Oh, yeah, you'd be just above. Just above the treetops.
Really?
Just above. Yeah. So if you're
That
below,
is low,
if you're below,
watch out for the wires. Right?
Exactly. If you're below the treetops, you got to watch out for the wires.
Do you have a close call with the wires?
No, I didn't do.
You know where they are, sort of thing.
So there was a lot. So because it was a long-running survey, we had this whole we had some GPS in the front and a whole database of obstacles to watch out for.
Database.
But there's also, so you need low-level training, right? So when I had this opportunity to do this work, and I was just filling in for Parks and Wildlife. They're a great organisation. I said, well, I haven't got low-level rating, endorsement, whatever it was. Oh, you're going to need that. Don't worry. I'll go down to Melbourne. I found someone who'll do it for me. So I just flew myself down there. I took my son down there.
Yep.
And the low-level stuff sounded really exciting, but, it's a bit dangerous.
A bit dangerous.
Yeah. But anyway.
You didn't do so much of that, yeah.
Well, I did. So I did the training, but it's quite funny. Like, we do all this low-level stuff out in the paddock, and, it was like 3 days of flying. And then I had to watch these videos on, this briefing videos. And then there was this video come up about power lines and, when you fly under the power lines. And I sort of freaked out a little bit. And the guy came in.
When you fly under the power lines.
And I said, you're not going to have me doing that, are you? And he said, yeah, what do you think you're here for? Anyway,
wow.
so we did quite a bit of that. And I just think it's a classic. My son he's 19 now, so he would have been like 12 or something like that. He's inside in this little flight school down in Leongatha playing on his iPad, and his dad's out the back flying under the power line. So I just thought that was a ripper.
Absolutely.
He should have got a photo, but anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So look, it's dangerous. It's a lot of fun, but you need to be trained and you need to do it safely. But when you're close to the ground, it's not a smooth ride. Oftentimes, it's very bumpy with turbulence and things like that.
Turbulence.
Yeah, and so you strap the airplane onto you.
Is that right? Right.
That's you got to think that way because you're down. You got to have your eyes outside.
So, Paul, talk to me about this. Was there a time where the instruments you were stressed out, like things are dicey, and tell me about the Blue Mountains. Tell me about that. What happened there? So you wanted to, as I understand, you can go a long way around the Blue Mountains, which is a bit safer.
Yep. Or
you can go Man for Snow River style, straight over the mountains, right?
Yeah. So this would be. I've come home from flying in Dubbo for a week with the flying doctors in my Cessna. I've parked it at Bankstown, and Davina's picked me up from Bankstown.
Okay.
And I have a couple of days off, and then I'm rostered on. Let's just say that was Friday, and I'm rostered on Monday. And the aeroplane's there at Bankstown ready to go, and I've come back to Sydney, being a dad and looking. We rented a place on the North Shore of Sydney, but I had to get back to Dubbo. You see, I had to be back. Monday morning, I had to get back Sunday night, and the weather starts getting really bad. It's like, what do I do? How do I get back? So yes, there is.
What, you're in Bankstown and when the weather's getting bad?
Well, the plane's sitting at Bankstown.
The clouds are rolling in. Is that it?
I'm woken up on Sunday morning and I'm looking at the weather and I'm like, this is not going to be pleasant.
You're in Sydney.
Yeah.
And your plane's at Bankstown.
Yeah.
But
I've got to get back to Dubbo.
So what happens?
Well, you've got to decide whether you're going to drive back or fly back.
Okay.
And
so thunderstorms and lightning, very, very frightening. No, but in a plane, that's bad news, right?
Oh yeah, can be very frightening.
Can it?
Yeah.
Because the wind, Because the wind can push you around, yeah.
Oh, you don't want to be in a thunderstorm.
You don't want to be in a small plane or any plane.
Any plane.
Any plane.
Mother Nature.
So what? Even the big jet Boeings, they don't like storms. Yeah.
No one likes storms.
They'll try and fly around them, sort of thing.
Oh, 100%.
So talk to me. So you get in the plane.
Well, I had. What I was faced with was crappy low cloud, and it was a front that had come through, and it was really nasty, turbulent weather. And
really.
So when you can go direct from Bankstown to Dubbo, but you've got to go over the Blue Mountains. Blue Mountains are like 3,500 feet, something like that.
Yeah.
So you've got to get up much higher than that, and then you're in a whole lot of cloud and weather and nasty stuff.
Right.
And so that's not great, especially if my aeroplane was only equipped for visual flight rules. So
really,
yeah, it wasn't equipped to do what I was personally equipped to do with a more sophisticated aeroplane. So I couldn't really, I could get all iced up or something like that. You get in nasty weather, and a little Cessna 172 is not meant to be in nasty weather like that.
Iced up. You could get ice on it.
Yeah, then you're in.
You can get ice in a storm, can you? Is that?
Yep. And then you get all this ice on your airframe, and then you basically can fall out of the sky, sort of thing. It didn't have the equipment on there to de-ice, and it just wasn't.
So what did you do?
Okay, so the other way is to take the low way, which is to go through the Hunter Valley.
Sure. Low way. Okay. Yeah. So you're not getting that high. Yeah. Okay.
So you got to stay low, and then you're maybe following roads for a bit, or you've got this route that you're using the GPS. When things are really tough, you use whatever tools you got.
So when you say following roads, so when you're in the plane, can you just go wherever you like?
A lot of this stuff is because we're little planes underneath the controlled airspace. It's only when you come to, say within 3 miles of Bankstown, that you're being controlled. So this is all
in lanes kind of thing, right?
You got it. That's right. Particular procedures, but there's a whole uncontrolled airspace. Which most of the country's uncontrolled.
Most of it, yeah. At a certain level.
At a certain level, yes.
What sort of elevation are we talking about?
Like this. You could go. The further away you are from major city centres, the higher up you can go without having a problem. So.
The higher up, the further away. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a cone.
So back to that trip.
Oh, look.
What did you do?
This was a particularly memorable flight back.
Yeah.
In that, so this is the pressure to get back.
Yeah.
And it was nice to get the airplane back because then it's there for when I want to come home again. And
sure.
I don't have the car, and it's a real rigmarole, and it's a lot faster flying.
Sure.
But I remember being in this airplane. It is my airplane, and I was in the Hunter Valley, and this is sort of like the Jerry Plains area.
So you'd gone the lower way?
I had to.
You had to?
Yeah. And it was just,
even the lower way was a bit dicey, yeah?
I was in this airplane, and my bag was hitting the ceiling, right? This is serious turbulence. It was so bad.
Seriously?
And I was petrified.
Really?
Yeah. But I remember...
And you hadn't been in a situation like that before, or...
It was pretty bad. It's really uncomfortable in a little light airplane,
right?
Because they're light, right?
Right.
If it was in,
really being thrown around.
It was. You think, these wings are going to stay on. Like a lot of this stuff is just fear, right?
Sure.
And I've been told by someone, the airplane is a lot stronger than the human, right? I mean, it's sort of like
than the what?
The human, right? Like so, the airplane can take more than you can.
Yeah, right. So if you're okay, if you're still around, the plane's going fine. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm still controlling the damn thing, but I remember...
How are you controlling it?
I'm just bloody fighting this bloody turbulence.
Fighting it. So when you're fighting turbulence, what are you doing?
Just trying to keep the thing straight and level and on track.
Straight and level.
But I'm looking...
So if you're not fighting that, if you just let go and you're in turbulence, what would happen?
Well, you just... Spiral out of control.
In that turbulence.
Yeah. Well, because you're getting thrown around. So if your airplane's getting pushed, the airplane goes where it's pointed. So you've got to keep it pointed to where you want it to go.
Yep.
Otherwise, Mother Nature's going to point it for you, and then you'll be spiraling down to the ground.
Pointed for you, yeah.
But in this, I was looking around for a place to land.
Were you?
That was the memorable thing. It's like
you were looking around.
I can't take this anymore.
Is that right?
Well, I was thinking about it. Because I'm like, I've got Dubbo's all the way over there. I can't take this shit anymore.
You can't take it anymore.
But anyway, I remember Dick Smith talking about this because he's done really terrifying flights around the world.
Right. Was he a chopper guy more?
He was, yeah.
Mainly, but he had both, obviously.
Lots, yeah. He's both. He's done a lot. He's done more than 8,000
Was he a bit of a... Did you read up about him and stuff like that at all? It seems like you've got a bit of that adventure spirit in you.
Yeah, so he was an inspiring character, especially as a kid. I'm an electrician, bit of an adventurer. I love the adventures and I love flying.
Yeah.
So he's always been an inspirational character.
Yeah.
But he talked about humans are designed to feel fear, right? And then they can very quickly forget it. So when you get to you get to your destination. I remember him saying this when he had this serious flight that scared the hell out of him when he got to his destination, wherever that was, and he's sitting in the cafe after just landing his helicopter, nearly being killed. Right. He's like, it wasn't really that bad.
Right. And that's how it felt for you with that one?
I can talk about it now. What I had to deal with wasn't that bad, but at the time, the time it was like, I just can't take this anymore. And it was probably, I was a bit tired. And
was that one of your worst flights?
It
sounds it.
Very unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've done about 3,400 hours.
Yeah.
And I haven't really had, I've been very lucky. I haven't really had anything go wrong. I've never broken an aeroplane. One thing here and there. I think I flat spotted a tyre, which is having your foot on the brakes when you land and you scuff the tyre. And there's probably been a couple of little things. I've had a fantastic boss when I did a lot of this aerial survey work. He brought the best out in me. I'm very lucky.
If you have an engine failure at 10,000 feet, what's going through your brain? What are you doing?
Well, the first thing you do is you got to find a place to land. If you have two engines, it's a different story.
If you have two engines, what?
If you have the two engines and you
that go, you mean? Or?
Well, no, that's very unlikely. Well, unless you've mismanaged your fuel or something. But if you have two engines and you're at 10,000 feet and one of them fails,
yes,
you've got a lot more options.
A lot more options.
If you have and this particular instance was a single engine airplane, if you have your only engine stop turning, you become a glider. So the first thing you're looking out the window for a place to land. Now, if it's night time, you're in a whole lot of strife.
Right.
And if you're over water, you're in a whole lot of strife. But you're trained with these things.
Yeah.
Looking
for a place.
Well, when you do your,
would you prefer to fly during the day for that reason?
Well, I've done quite a bit of night flying, including my own aeroplane,
including your own.
Yeah.
What's your first night flight like?
Beautiful. Night flying's fantastic. It's so
lovely. Why is that?
Because at night time, often the air's cooler and calmer. The sun's
really?
Well, the sun creates the turbulent air.
Okay.
So when the sun's gone down, everything cools. Like the wind.
Oh,
the wind on the ground. When the sun goes down, it's a calm, beautiful. It's a nice.
Right.
So flying at night is cooler and smoother.
Oh.
Not always the case, but generally.
Yeah.
And such a pleasant experience, especially taking off at Bankstown and if you're doing some night training, you're going down there and you've checked out the airplane and then the sun's gone down and then you go do your night circuits or something like that. And all the twinkle of the city lights.
Yeah. It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So obviously the single engine aspect of that, you're always taught about emergencies and things like that. But if you're flying a single engine airplane at night time, you do think about what's underneath you.
Right.
Because
what's underneath you?
Well, if you're travelling from Dubbo to Bankstown and you're commuting at night time, which I've done a lot of times.
When you say commuting, you mean in the plane?
In my system, I finish my shift at Dubbo, and especially if it's winter, because once you've finished, if it's a day shift and it's winter, the sun's going down, and by the time you're taking off from Dubbo to come back to Bankstown, it's starting to get dark, and then you're arriving at Bankstown fully at night, but you're over the mountains when it's dark.
Yeah. So when the weather's fine, you'll go over the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there more airstrips out there than people realise? So say you're coming from Dubbo, are an issue. Maybe you have an issue. Are you looking for airstrips like, my next airstrips is Jerry Plains or something like that? Are you thinking like that? Or?
You do think like this anyway. It becomes a thing that you're taught to do anyway.
Yep.
Farmer Joe's paddock is often there. So in an emergency sense, if you have an engine failure, you don't have a lot of time. You've got to... You're basically looking out the window and you're looking at what's down there.
What's down there.
There's not a lot.
You never had to do a paddock ditch, would you?
No, but you practice a lot when you're in training, because you that's the whole point with the training, that if it does happen,
you're ready for it.
Yeah, and a lot of this flying, even the commercial stuff and in simulators and things, it is all... I mean, all these airline people, all they're doing in these simulators is having problems that they have to deal with. So that's where you earn your money.
Having problems you have to deal with. That's where you're earning money.
That's
why they're paying you
that's right. I mean, that's when your training really kicks in.
Yeah,
so,
I understand.
I'm lucky. I don't want to have an engine failure. I don't want to have anything nasty happen.
So, Paul, you mentioned that night flight, the lights and stuff. Was there a flight out back or anywhere where you just were like, this is surreal. Like, it was just so amazing. Do you know what I mean?
Lake Air with my wife, Davina.
Dusk or something?
With morning and afternoon, sunrise and sunset, Davina's
Just another world. It just looked strange to you.
It's just like you're on another planet.
Yeah, really.
That's what it was like, So
yeah, what was the colours and that?
Colours, the salt, and you're down low, 500 feet over the water, and back then there was water in it, and just amazing. So there's so many places out. I'm drawn to the outback.
You're drawn to the outback. Yeah.
And look,
why is that? It's the Fergus. It's the relations. It's the Qantas thing.
I think there is something in that. I think there is something in that.
For sure. So just briefly, that began as a mail route, didn't it? The Qantas?
Qantas Empire Airways, Queensland and Northern Territory Aerial Service. So, yeah, there's that. I mean, lots of things.
That is interesting. Yeah, you end up in planes out in the same area. That is interesting.
And, you go out to these places like Walgett or Burke, and you go into the airfield terminal, and there's pictures of Nancy Bird Walton on the wall, and these people were just, they were flying out there, 70, 80 years ago, something like that, and they didn't have any of this GPS stuff, and they were pioneers, and they were adventurers, and they were risk takers in machines that were much more unreliable.
That was dead reckoning stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And if you mess it up, you could be lost forever. That's really exciting, So to me,
to you, yeah.
And going back to these, it's like going back in time. I can't remember who it was on the wall in the Walgett airstrip, but it's like an old building, right? An old building from the 50s, and you're sitting there, and this would have been on a flying doctor job where the King Air's out there on the apron, and I'm sitting there waiting, and the flight nurse is going to come back, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, it's like, 60 years ago there would have been a DC-3 out there, and school kids would have been getting on and off it, and they would have been well dressed, and
right.
It's just like going back into. We don't do this anymore. You see, the roads are so good, there's no services out to these places anymore, like scheduled services. So it's only little aeroplanes that are doing maybe charters or the flying doctors, and maybe some private people that are going out to Burke to refuel, and so there's not a lot happening, but it is another world. It's sort of like a forgotten world, and like you live these busy lives in Sydney. And my private life's always been busy when I've been doing my contracting work, and you just get caught up in this city lifestyle. And if you can manage to book time and hire an airplane, or if you've got your own one, and book a trip and put the effort in to plan it, that one day you're actually in the damn thing and you're gone, and then you've left your world behind.
Yeah.
And the Outback's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And
you just love that. Yeah, love getting the family.
Look, I tell you what, it's great when you land on an airstrip, and then you get off the airstrip and get onto the road, and then taxi the airplane up and park it in the front of the pub, and then stay the night. And
wow,
that's cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's always been. I've done many of those.
So on that, if you've got your plane there and you've landed at the pub, you don't have a car there, right? So you're limited in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you account for that with your planning.
Yeah.
But a lot of these places they will pick you up.
Yeah, okay.
And when you get there, they treat you very, very well. If you go, like I actually came back from a trip just recently with a friend. We went to Arkaroola, so it's a wilderness sanctuary in the Flinders Ranges, and they had an airstrip there, and so they picked us up. They sold us fuel for the aeroplane. Then they lent us the four-wheel drive, and then we were able to go exploring. And we only stayed there one night. Beautiful restaurant, and just amazing scenery. So, there's a lot, you don't need the car.
Yeah, no, sure, no. I just thought it was an interesting logistical thing.
Well,
normally it's like, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Your Cessna becomes your car. You know what I mean? Like, once you've gone for a day...
On that, sorry, what's the most trivial... you hear stories of, Kerry Packer would fly somewhere for a polo match or something.
Yeah.
What's the most trivial flight that you've taken to sort of, No. Was there anything you did personally? Like we really didn't have to fly there, but we did.
Oh, well, I'll tell you some aerial survey stuff. I remember doing a whole week of survey. This is a government aeroplane, and this is just aerial mapping around Walgett. Sorry, not Walgett, Wagga. A whole week, working really hard, and then there was going to be a changeover of crew.
Once that's mapped, do they need to keep doing that, or is it done?
Once it's like painting the Harbour Bridge.
Is it? It's changing all the time.
Once you finish, you've got to start again. And
yeah.
So that
really?
Yep. So that's a government department. There's lots of private mapping as well.
Mapping changes. Mapping changes.
Yeah. Well, you can go onto that government website and look at old maps. You can go and find that you can look up, and they've got.
It sort of looks different a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Where I live in Ralston, I can look up, and I did do this. I can look up where I live, and it was just a farm. And there was actually an airstrip there. I was actually interested in that. So,
right.
And you can look back. So they keep all of this data.
They keep all that data.
Yeah. So it's just it's a New South Wales government thing. So, I did a lot of that. But I do remember a whole week of flying, and there was a crew changeover, not for the pilot, just for the government crew. And that morning, the new crew came along, and this crew that the other guy had been there for a week, he was preparing for the new crew to come into the plane. He was going to take the car and go back to base, and he's sorting out things in the back with all this camera gear and computers and racks and things. And he's like, "Oh, these hard drives. Put the hard drive in there, and okay, format, yes, done." And he just wiped a whole week's worth of flying, probably $100,000 worth of flying.
Whoa! Wow.
But anyway, I mean, people make mistakes. But
Sure.
That was pretty funny.
Wow, that sounds it.
So we started doing it all over again.
Really? Oh, you started doing it all over again?
All that flying we did.
Yeah.
It's all pre-planned runs. So we do 30-mile runs where you've got to fly the airplane very straight and everything and concentrate.
But you're sort of enjoying it. Loved it anyway.
That's great.
You probably didn't mind.
No, it's fine. It is work.
Start again.
It is work. So flying's sort of like, it's this whole thing.
It is work, yeah.
Like, why work when you can fly? Flying is so much fun. And yes, it's challenging. And yes, some of the most stressful times in your life could be in an aeroplane. And that's for all types of airplanes, big and small.
Yeah.
It is fun. And there's this, I think this is my saying, I don't know, but Davina and myself, there's this 90-10 rule. It's 90% disappointment and difficult and all these negative things, but 10% pure magic.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you have those moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, they're paying me for this. This is insane,
Yeah.
So, but generally speaking, it's just a lot of fun. Especially aerial survey. A lot of the aerial survey we did, it was always good weather, you see, because they wouldn't send an airplane out to do mapping when it was nasty weather.
Wouldn't they?
Because there's clouds everywhere. And they want beautiful blue skies.
Right.
And so they would.
Good day for mapping, you'd say.
So you wouldn't go unless it was like that. So my memory of aerial survey was just a paid holiday. You'd go to these places like you'd be at Wagga for a couple of weeks, or you'd be at Broken Hill for a couple of weeks, hotel rooms, and the wife's at home going, he's out there having a ball. But it was enjoyable
for
fun.
that type of thing.
Yeah, it was a bit of a trip.
What's a typical day as a flying doctor? Tell me, like when you were in what would happen there?
So you'd be rostered on. You'd have a shift, very similar to like an ambulance shift.
Yep.
Because you work closely with that part as well.
So, if there's nothing on, are you playing pool or?
There was always something on.
Right.
Well, sometimes
always something on, really.
So when I did a year with the Flying Doctors, 13 months. So I worked there for the whole of 2018, and I did 750 hours in that year.
Right.
And you can only really do 900 legally.
Right.
So it was sort of a lot.
So you were working
I worked a lot. I actually flew the most hours that year out of all of them, and I never took a sick day, and I was the junior pilot there.
Okay.
Mostly flew. Everyone hated the night shift.
Why?
Oh, because it's sort of outside of your circadian rhythms, you see.
Right.
So, yes, the night flying's pleasant, but
just on that, how like sometimes we've tired in the car. A couple of times you go, "Wow, I really need to pull over and have a rest."
Yeah.
In an aeroplane, has that happened to you? And you're like,
well,
do you know what I mean?
That's if you're drunk.
There's no driver reviver in the sky, sort of thing.
No.
Like what?
That's if you've mismanaged your lifestyle. Probably you can't do that. If you're hungover or something like that.
Right. That hasn't happened to you where you go, I just wish I was on the ground right now and out of sleep. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's been some times where I've been a bit tired. But well, you train to. And look, here's the thing: you're going to land. And look, if you're going to go on a flight that's 5 or 6 hours long, it's a job that you've got to get it done. And maybe you've exhausted at the end of it. But
At the end of
the flying doctor flights,
yeah.
they're quite short. They're only maximum of 2 hours
2 hours what?
in the aeromedical airplane. So
The flight, you mean?
the
or?
flight, yeah.
Okay.
Now you might have 4 or 5 of them in a day, though.
Right.
So yes, you can. That could be a very demanding job.
Right.
And this is often a thing with flying. You're paid to be on standby, and you do nothing, and you got the day off essentially. And sometimes you know it, and other times you're getting flogged. And look, one of my
evens out.
one of my aerial survey jobs was sort of a lot of sitting around. I got paid a lot of money to sit around, and I lived in Canberra in hotels for like 2 years. So and with a hire car and I did
Making up for a lot of those early fees though, and early free hours probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wasn't complaining.
Yeah,
I wasn't complaining.
Yeah.
The flying doctor job, that was a challenging job. It was very rewarding. And look, some of the flights were difficult.
Yeah. What do you mean difficult? Just weather and then combined with urgency sort of thing?
Yeah. So when I was trained, I did this sort of basic. The dental clinic, so you would take dental and medical people out to these towns. It wasn't an emergency thing.
No, sure.
You knew you were going, it was scheduled.
Sure.
So when you got, after all of that, I started to do the emergency stuff, which is what most of the organisation's all about.
Yeah.
So we had the flying doctors had the New South Wales ambulance contract as well.
Right.
So I worked under that umbrella. So we would have a phone call and we'd be expected to be in the air in 45 minutes.
Right.
And you could go anywhere. And you could be, and then be taking someone anywhere. So some of the good ones were memorable ones. At 2:00 in the morning, get a phone call, got to go to Louth and pick someone up and then take them to Orange or something like that.
Right.
And Louth's just like a tiny little airstrip and there's one pub town sort of thing.
Right.
And you got to ring up the pub. Oh, can you go and make sure the airstrip's all good and there's no kangaroos there? And
right.
So you're doing this at 2:00 in the morning.
Right.
And then flying out there and it's just a black hole. So you're coming in at 400 kilometres an hour or whatever in this sophisticated $10 million aeroplane, and then there's some runway lights and you could see some twinkle a couple of kilometres away, which is the pub. And everything else is just black.
Everything else.
And it's a short runway.
Right.
And so you're relying on a lot of your training and skill not to mess it up. And then you're landing, and then there's the ambulance come along, and that one was picking up a little baby, So this is their only way of really getting the help.
Wow.
And then, and oftentimes in the middle of the night we would go to places out in the outback New South Wales. A lot of it was New South Wales, and then we'd be landing at Kingsford Smith at 3:00 in the morning. And that's pretty cool, for a young pilot to. It's a big airport.
So on that mascot, it's just reserved for the big airlines. Is that right?
Mostly, but New South Wales Ambulance have a facility there.
Yep.
And they would have half a dozen of these King Air type airplanes.
Yep.
There's the whole corporate
But
section.
you and your Cessna, you're not.
They don't want me there.
No.
There was a whole thing.
Could you go there or no?
It was possible, but you'd probably really upset them if you tried to do that. During COVID, a lot of pilots that were had this bucket list thing were doing it because all the airlines,
because there was nothing.
They were all grounded, and it became a bit of a thing.
A bucket list. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's a massive runway for a little Cessna.
Right.
Like you could land and take off on it probably 10 times before you.
Is that right? Yeah. So those lights look pretty incredibly complicated to me. Are they?
The light?
Oh, like at Sydney. Not that you were flying there often, but they look complicated.
That's built for big, A380s and huge aeroplanes. And
but what's all the colouring and everything? That's got meanings, greens and oranges and things.
Yep, there's particular meaning to all of that. Yeah. And when you learn to fly as a professional, you've got to learn about all of this stuff. Now, you might be flying in the outback in a little Cessna doing tours of Lake Eyre or Ayers Rock or something like that, but you're trained in this stuff to a basic degree because you may use it one day. You might get called up for an airline job, and then these things really become relevant. But yes, all of those markings on the ground, they all have meaning, and those airports are equipped with all this sophisticated, navigational things, which when you're in the flying doctor job, that was all relevant. So we'd be mixing it up with the big jumbos,
mixing it up. So can I ask you? So at the airport, do they prioritise different planes on size and how many people are in them? Will you get pushed around if you're a smaller plane, or?
Well, it's the opposite with the flying doctors.
You're probably given
Well, it would take one word, medevac. That's the word. So when you're commencing your flight and making initial contact with air traffic control,
yes,
and if you say the word medevac,
yes,
you're basically telling them that this is an emergency,
yes,
and you need priority. And so when you get to Sydney,
yes,
you're basically able to go straight in, and the rest have to wait, sort of thing. So.
Wow.
But normally, if it's a private flight, you're just a bloke with a Cessna,
yes,
you're a low priority.
Yes, yeah. So that does happen, yeah. So you'll get pushed. You'll have to wait around.
Yeah.
Is that including taxiing on the way out as well? Do you have to sort of wait around?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're a lower priority.
Little planes aren't really at those big airports.
No.
Sometimes, if you go...
Well, say maybe not so tiny, but smaller. Do they get... is there a pecking order for taxiing out?
There would be, yeah. I mean, if you've got a big 747 or an A380, you've got hundreds of people on it. You've got $500 million worth of aeroplane.
Getting them off,
And they can't do the manoeuvring that little planes can do. So...
Okay.
It all needs to be, choreographed and orchestrated.
No, that's good. So, hey, Paul, on a lighter note, so what do they really call lowering the landing gear?
Oh, I thought about this the other day. Dangling the Dunlops.
Dangling the Dunlops. What is that? Tongue in cheek?
Oh, well, Dunlops is the manufacturer of the tyre.
Yeah.
I remember.
No, absolutely.
I remember being at one of these flight training places, doing a course, and I remember that this instructor, he had all the great lines, and it's just a bit of comedy.
All the good lines.
Yep.
Yeah. And what are they in your little small world, in your small community? What do they call small planes?
Bug smashers. That's a derogatory term for the big airline pilots, for little people like me and a Cessna.
Right.
A bug smasher.
A derogatory one. Yeah.
Just a little focker.
So you're glad you didn't you're glad you didn't go down the airline thing. It just wasn't your thing.
I am.
Yeah.
The more that time went on, the more it was so obvious I couldn't do it.
It was so obvious you couldn't do it.
Me, yeah.
So you found your groove.
Way.
Yeah.
I've had such a variety in 9.5 years.
Yeah.
So lots of roles for organisations in the kind of flying that was enjoyable to me. And I'm a bit of a control freak, so single pilot operations.
Yeah,
and
you like to be independent. Yeah,
I didn't like so much the control of how to do things to the letter, which what you have in it has to be
to
that
do
way.
every yeah.
And it was more
took the fun out of it for you. Yeah.
Well, the fun needed to be there. I mean, if the fun's not there, it's sort of It doesn't matter how much they're going to pay. My wife will disagree. If the fun's not there, it doesn't matter how much they're going to pay you. I'll do it for a bit, but...
You'll do it for a bit.
But I've got to go.
So is that for Paul Deegan as well in your life? Do you like to have a motorbike and a fast car and that sort of thing? Are you a bit of a on the edge kind of guy, or just in the plane, just in the air?
I'm consolidating on my need to be responsible.
Settling down.
I run a business.
Yeah.
My son's at first year university. My daughter's going into year 12 next year.
Yeah.
We live a good life. I'm actually quite happy and settled at the moment.
Yes.
I didn't fly for about 5 years. I had a couple of flights in that, but
priorities shift around a bit.
Yeah. The airplane had to
Is that why you left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my kids needed private school.
Yep.
I was lucky enough to be private school educated.
Yep.
And I went to St. Joseph's at Hunters Hill, and we always thought that we'll try the public system, but if it's not going well, that's where our son Malcolm would go, and that's where he went.
Yep.
And it was fantastic. It was the best money we ever spent. I sold that Cessna to pay for 1 year of school fees.
Yeah, right, sure.
And then once we'd gone down that pathway, I had to be responsible. But it's such a rewarding thing in itself. And I've had a great career.
Yeah.
And I've just put it on. I'm 45 now, so
you could go back to it.
Well, no, that's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
I know that.
You're done.
I am done.
Yeah.
So I can maintain a private pilot's license.
Yep.
Easy.
Yep.
All of that extra requirements that you need to. If I wanted to go back, it would be quite a rigmarole to meet all the requirements again. If I got in that King Air today and sit in the cockpit, I wouldn't know what to do. I've forgotten.
Oh, right. You've got to keep up with the currency, yeah? You've got to keep flying.
That's right. But a basic Cessna, that's no problem. That's just like getting into a car. That's the fun stuff, you see. So
so if you got in a King Air, you would have lost.
It's a complicated machine. It's a hell of a workload. I'd forget how to start the bloody thing.
Really?
I could do it, but if I damaged it, then I'll.
Right.
So you need to be trained. You need to be checked all the time.
You really need to, yeah. So they want really primed pilots in those things.
Yeah. And you're doing it all. It's your whole life. So I'd made.
It's your whole life. Yeah.
Well, it's.
That's your top priority. You're living to fly, right, at that stage.
Yeah. That's your job. That's what you like to do.
Yep.
You've got to do it well. You've got to do it legally. When I brought that King Air back in on the last day, I knew it was my last day. It was the last.
You knew it was your last day.
Yeah, I'd given them 6 months' notice.
Yeah.
And I picked the last day that my license was valid for that kind of operation.
Okay.
So it was going to expire midnight that night. So that was my last shift.
Wow.
And I've got a video of it. One of my friends took a video of it. No one was there with the host and everything, but a friend was there. He thought it was good, so that was nice. And I brought the thing in and I parked it where it needed to go, shut the thing down. I did it. I didn't damage everything. I did a good job. I'm out. And it was good. It was great. It was
a good finish, good closure.
It bookended it. That flying doctor job.
Bookended, yeah.
That was the dream job. For a general aviation pilot. Everyone dreamed. Well, a lot of pilots dream of doing that job. I was very lucky to have that job.
Yeah.
And it's a privilege to have done it. I couldn't keep doing it, and my kids needed me. I needed to make more money. A lot of people don't realise how difficult it is to make a living with aviation.
Right.
If you went through the sort of college, aviation college route, or the commercial flight school thing, like I started out at, and in a sort of maybe a cadetship under an airline, and then you finished all of that training, and then you started working for this airline. Let's say it's like Regional Express or Qantas. I think they have one now in Brisbane. They have like a cadet kind of training facility, and you start working for some of these airlines or Qantas Link or something like that as a first officer. You'll make more money at Woolworths, you know. Wow. So
why is that?
It's just very difficult.
It's the way it's structured. It's the way the costs go. Is it?
It's hard to know. We'll put it this way: if a pilot, and I've done this. I did my whole first year of flying with the jump flying, skydiving pilot, and I didn't get paid anything. So I'm kind of like not doing a good service to my fellow pilots. But it's just
what by taking that job by doing that.
Yeah, and it's a very unionised industry as well. It's an old-fashioned unionised industry.
Right.
So there's. The bigger the plane, the bigger the responsibility, the more.
But in a way, it sounds like you need a union, though. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well,
would you say that, or would you say they're not?
Well, see, this is the thing that's a bit different with me. I'm not a union.
Like because what I'm saying is because of the pay rates.
I can understand, the enterprise bargaining and the airlines, and that was a big detractor for me. I was more of an individual. Because I was a contractor, I always worked for myself as an electrician. I had that...
same mentality with flying?
That's right. And when I went to the Flying Doctors, they were unionised as well. And they have the enterprise bargaining agreement, and they have their whole rosters and everything.
Right.
You either fit to that or you don't. You go.
Right.
And I even tried, I just thought, well, because I had a bit of an unusual situation. I had my own little aeroplane. I lived in Sydney. I didn't live in Dubbo. I would have done 10 night shifts in a row. But, just to let's make a deal.
Make a deal?
Well, because I'm more of a private guy, I'd rather be a contractor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than fit to...
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't...
But you couldn't do that.
No, and I understand that because they're an organisation and they've got to have their structure because they've got contracts to meet with the government and they have to meet all of the flight and duty limitations of a pilot. You can't just, work them to the bone, but I was sort of happy to do that, but
over here.
Yeah, so that was sort of, I much prefer to work for a smaller organisation that's really flexible and give me your aeroplane. I know it's a bit crappy, but I'll get out there and do a damn good job and bring it back and clean the belly of it when I'm finished and hand it back. That's what I really enjoyed that, when I got to the flying doctors, I said, let's clean the airplane. We don't do that.
Right. So someone else does that.
Yeah, like,
we don't do that.
Oh, look, they're a great organisation.
We don't do that. Yeah.
Well, that was sort of a union thing,
Sure. We don't touch that. Interesting.
I kind of took a lot of pride in. There's a lot of pride in lying on your back, cleaning the belly of an airplane.
There's a lot of what? Sorry.
Pride.
Pride in it. Yeah. Caring for the equipment, you mean, or machinery?
Yeah, because these machines are beautiful machines, right? And we're privileged to fly them.
On this, Paul, sorry. So I saw something, an old Luftwaffe pilot who'd flown the Messerschmitts, and he'd always wanted to fly a Spitfire. He was 95 years of age, and he flew it.
Yeah.
And he said these machines provide you with freedom, that you can go anywhere. Yeah. And I just thought, what an irony. Like, it's a machine, but it gives you that freedom. Is that how you look at it?
Yes. Yeah. It's a vehicle. It's like magic carpet.
So you love your machine then, do you?
Oh, yeah. And you've got to look after it. And because I owned one, and I was taught very early on, in one of my first jobs, we sent the airplane back and it was disgusting underneath. We were told. And you don't want to upset your boss because you want to, progress in this career. So from then on, this is what's expected. This is what we do. So
you're taught that, are you?
Yeah.
Respect it, care for your machine.
Yep.
Because it's going to look after you when you need it, right? Is that the mentality?
100%. Yeah. And it's not just the paint job. You've got to look after everything. You've got to become knowledgeable about everything.
Yeah. So you like that aspect of it
I
then? Because you are an engineer, right? So
well, I'm not, but I have that.
Well, you've got that.
I've got that streak.
Yeah. So you appreciated that. So you would do your own maintenance on your own plane, would you?
Oh, only the stuff that I was approved to do.
That you were approved to.
Yeah. So it's a very regulated thing.
I see.
So, yeah.
How do you know for pilots at a party, Paul?
Oh, they'll tell you.
What is it with that? I guess there's a sense of pride that a lot of people want to be a pilot and they don't do it. What is it? What is it about that?
It's a prestigious thing. Right?
Prestigious thing.
Like it's exclusive.
Yes.
So
because of the difficulty to get into it, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You need to have certain skills.
It's
hard to get in. It's expensive. And there's this mystique about it, like the uniform and in the eyes of the public, it's right up there. I mean, and it's funny because they just have a license. Don't have a degree or.
They just have a license.
It's a license.
It's a hard one to get though.
But, it is. Yeah. I think, and this is another reason I didn't. It's sort of why there's lots of reasons why I decided to retire, right? And you could probably list them all, but one of them is this thing about once you go down that road, you're in the airlines. I didn't see that a lot of them were happy,
Right.
And
that's interesting because I met a Qantas pilot once, and at the end of the day, I'm stuck behind a guy. I'm going to LA. It's like I'm in a bus, and I was like.
Yep.
That's not what I was led to believe. There might be an aspect of that, right, Paul? And that's probably why you liked your under the lower.
Yeah. Well, that's freedom. Is go wherever you want and do it your way and not be told. That's great. Yeah. But it is interesting though when I said like my first day with the flying doctors and I was shown, and I was like, "Whoa, you've got the coolest job in the world." And the guy, Brett, the chief
Was the pay good? Was the pay good for that job?
It was all right. I think I got paid like $120,000 a year, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
You know, it was good. It was a really good
But
job.
not
Especially if you
not
live
those
in
big jumbo jet types.
No.
They're on big money, aren't they? Those guys.
Yeah, it depends where you are in the pecking order and if it's a second officer or a first officer, you know, a captain.
Pecking order.
Well,
yeah.
you know that I don't know what they get paid, maybe $500,000 a year for the captains. And I think in that when you get to that level, I mean, it's sort of a thing in your life, and you probably get hooked on the money a little bit, have mortgages or something like that, and you're getting paid all this money, and you've got this really specialised job, and you've got one employer. You can't. It's either stick with it or maybe go overseas.
Specialised job. Yeah.
And I just
That's
thought,
the point. Yeah. You're lucky you had your other skill there because
you know, that's my parents always said when I was much younger as an electrician, as an apprentice, oh, it's good that you're doing a trade, you'll have something to fall back on. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to fall back. And I fell back on it all throughout my aviation career, all the time.
All the time. So you would have gaps where you're not being...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My whole time I was at Dubbo, I did have the Cessna there a lot of the time, but I still drove an electrician's van, basically, with all the gear in it. So there were periods where I didn't do a lot of that contracting work, but it was a juggle the whole time, and I had these different jobs. The flying doctor job was a 1 year thing, and I was an employee. The first time I'd ever been an employee as a pilot. All of the other jobs were contracting jobs.
Okay.
So you're casual, and
Right.
so I had to juggle these things. And when I had I had a survey job in Canberra. I'd lived in Canberra a lot. I would still have, like, say, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off flying. And so I would be down there for 2 weeks, standby or doing aerial survey. And then I'd come home to Sydney for 2 weeks doing electrical contracting work.
Yes.
And then I would juggle.
Oh, right.
And so it's sort of sometimes I had these periods in this career where it was actually really nice. And, oh, geez, things are going so well, you know?
Yeah.
So I prefer that sort of flexibility rather than structured employment. I didn't like being boxed in.
Yeah.
And I didn't like...
Some people do like that,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But I thought that if I stayed with the Flying Doctors, I'd be here for 10 years and I'd be a miserable sod.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the Flying Doctors.
Right.
It's just... I just thought that... I don't know. I just didn't like... And I thought that about the airlines as well. It takes a bit of the fun away, some of this stuff.
Sure.
You know, some of the magic. Because,
magic.
as I said, the first day in the Flying Doctors, oh, you've got the coolest job in the world. But after a year, it's just a bit procedural.
Yeah. Do you think let's just say you're a civilian, normal life, non-pilot scenario. Yep. Do you think having been a pilot and what you'd learnt, does it change how you view your other life? Does that make sense?
Well, it does a bit. I mean, you are a product of your experience.
Yes. You don't pull into BP and go, this is how much fuel I need to get to. Not really, right? No, is there anything, I'm just curious, is there any other ways that you think,
Probably. It does change you. Like,
changes
and how you think. And
how you think.
Yeah, it does. It does.
What's the most challenging aspect of flying?
Mother Nature, probably.
Mother Nature.
Yeah, I mean, your day can turn really bad if your airplane quits on you in some way. Mother Nature.
Mother Nature. It's unpredictable.
Well, yeah, you know.
How good are they at reading? Are those radar maps? They're pretty good?
It's good.
Yeah.
But the really scary and nasty weather systems are kind of unpredictable. So
scary ones are unpredictable.
Well, they
don't show you their face on the radar's screen.
Well, you know, like, say for planning, like, you know, so if you're planning a flight from say if you're planning from Bankstown to go to Canberra or something like that, you're planning a couple of hours before maybe, or you think about it, and it's going to be, 3 hours by the time you're at the destination trying to land. The scenario that you're dealt with could be very different to what you thought.
Yeah.
So it's, that's probably the most difficult.
Yeah.
It's very regular. I remember when I was proposing to my wife to go and learn how to fly, I'm like, I had no idea. I'd say to her, oh, look, there's all these rules that they're not allowed to work that hard. It's all regulated how many hours they can work, It'll be easy.
Right.
It's extremely difficult. And in reality, you could be worked to the bone. So, there's challenges all the time, but you've got to have challenges. Yeah. Otherwise...
So you've got to have a really good, strong passion for flying to go through all of that,
You need the bug.
Paul, that's really good. What if someone's out there thinking of becoming a pilot, maybe going down your direction, what would you say to them?
I would say... I'd say do it.
Yeah?
Because if you don't, you might regret it.
Yep. So, Paul, as we sort of come into land this interview, what is the secret to a great landing? Is there one? How do they get a smooth swan landing? How do they do that?
Any landing you can walk away from is a good landing.
Oh, okay. There's no secret to last minute sort of, any sort of...
Well, you can try your best and you can get quite good at it, but every now and again you can make a bit of a mess of it. Look, obviously, the aeroplane can take a lot. You can slam the bloody thing down and it's not comfortable and dodgy. You take a lot of pride in your landing. You always... I remember coming in on the last flying doctor flight in Dubbo, my last one, I've got to make this a bloody good one. And it wasn't a good one.
Wasn't it?
Well, it was when a pilot...
It'd be a fine line, right, between a good one and a bad one?
Oh, I mean, like a greaser, they call it. When you come in and your wheels just touch down, you hear a squeak, squeak, and you don't even feel it.
Right.
And it's just...
That's a beautiful one, yeah.
Instead, it's just...
So what happened to your one?
It was just the normal one. It was just like plonk, big king head, plonk, and then put in the reverse and everything.
Just a normal one, yeah.
I remember a flight in the skydiving days. This was in a Cessna Caravan, a nice turboprop utility plane, beautiful thing. And we really shouldn't have taken off. Then we had 16 skydivers on there, and they were hanging around.
You really shouldn't have taken off? Why? Weight-wise, or?
Oh, I was happy to. No, they shouldn't have decided to because the conditions were crap.
Right.
And so it's a commercial operation, right? They've got 16 people, so there's 8 tandems, so there's 8 customers, right?
Yeah.
And they're all paying, I don't know, $300 each to jump.
Sure.
So if you take the thing up, you want to get them up there so you can drop them and make the money.
Yeah, sure.
We took off. So they have a point beyond which they can safely fly with a parachute.
Yeah.
And it was beyond that. I don't know why they said go.
Wow.
I'm just waiting around. Oh, you want to go, do you? Oh, okay, I'll take you up. And I took them up, took off.
You want to go, do you? Well, you were surprised.
There you go. We love flying and we're much more capable with a Cessna Caravan with crappy conditions than a parachutist is, if they have like a lot of turbulence, the parachute can collapse and they can, end up hitting the ground and things like that. So they have those problems as well. But anyway, took them up, and we were getting smashed. We're all strapped in and we're coming out of our seats, and an airplane like that is very comfortable with flying those things in turbulence. They're a really cool machine. Anyway, get up to about one of the tasks when you're a skydiving pilot is to find what the winds are doing. So you're taking off and you're turning and you're using your GPS and your airspeed and you're mathematically calculating and you're giving the information to the main tandem master, they call them.
Right. As to where they should jump out, right?
Well, they want to know what the winds are on all the levels.
Right.
But anyway, it was kind of pointless because we were getting smashed around and we got up to about 2,000 feet, something like that, and there's serious turbulence and he's like, just land, cut it, land. And I'm like, beautiful. Hit the bloody, put the power lever back to idle. The Cessna Caravan's a beautiful machine. You just whack it back to idle.
He said just land, we're not going to jump. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, take us back. We can't skydive in this conditions, right? And this such a manoeuvrable, awesome machine, this thing.
Right.
Anyway, just come back down, getting smashed around, but unbeknownst to all of the people in the plane, really, it was still early-ish in the morning. There was this low-level inversion layer, right, where on the ground it was very, very calm.
Right.
And maybe about, 500 feet and above, it was like serious winds and turbulence. This is a common thing to happen in the morning, right?
Right.
Because the layer there close to the earth is cold.
Yeah.
And it's still, it's like when the fogs and the frosts form.
Yeah.
And so we come back down, we're getting smashed around, and it's like, I don't remember being that worried, just because it's a Cessna Caravan, it's just a cool machine. And when you do skydiving, you do a lot of landings. I do like 12 of them in a day.
Right.
And I was doing it yesterday, so it was quite comfortable with it. But
you were doing it yesterday?
Well, if I was flying... No, not yesterday, but the day before this event.
Oh, I see. Sure.
So I was
sure.
at the time I was very proficient
Right.
and comfortable.
I see.
You want to be comfortable, otherwise you start getting worried. I wasn't worried, but I didn't really think about that, the inversion layer, but we're getting smashed around and everyone in the back's really, really worried, and they get down and just land a greaser. Beautiful. Yeah. And then, they just touch down so smoothly and just beautiful. Yeah. And then put in reverse thrust, and you hear the engine making all that noise, but it was just the smoothest landing. A round of applause. It was like, oh, wow. What that did the ego.
Wow.
That was cool.
Many men and women want to be pilots. You've actually done it. And fascinating to see that that bloodline, that adventurous, pioneering spirit, it really was there. It really is there, I think, in your bloodline. Yeah, from Qantas right through. That's very interesting.
Yeah, very
so thank you, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, cheers.
To anyone else, if you did enjoy today's show, I've got a bit of a challenge to want to get to 30 subscribers. So please like and subscribe if you did enjoy today's show. Today it's been another world. I'm Chris Thomas, and thanks for watching.